Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here at ACC's Community Room for Lunchtime Gentle Yoga. I'm Jeani, your guide for the next hour. Today's class will be kind of continuing as we've been for the last few weeks. There is a transition in the air. It's been so nice to have the nicer weather, but you know that's going to affect your body. So I just want to mention, take it slowly, see how you're feeling. Today's practice might be very different from last week's. Anyhow, that being said, we'll start at the back of the mat. We'll be using blocks. Use a bolster, use a chair. I'm going to hopefully cue for that. If you have issues meeting the floor, having the blocks there, having the chair there, or just, you know, standing in your comfortable pose until you're able to meet. You know, those are things you can do in the transition. Just have your props nearby. Anyhow, let's start with bringing our music into play. And as you arrive to the back of the mat, you don't have to change the quality of your breath. Just allow yourself to arrive and notice how you feel. under the mat. Under the feet are the mat. Under the feet is the mat. And as you're just feeling how the body feels on top of this mat. The legs are sore, have a slight bend to the knees. And then we'll begin to bring our breath and body together. Cultivating the breath, let's go ahead and bring the left hand resting on the chest, right palm underneath the belly button. Breathe. With a slower breath, a little more focus here. Notice how the air enters the body, hand lifting at the top of the breath. And on the exhale, a little more control. See if you can press out any residual air, bringing the belly hand in. Bottom of the exhale, the core is engaged. And as we finish cultivating the breath, bring some space to the back of the throat. See if you can hear the ocean. Deep sigh on both the inhales and the exhales. Okay, let's go ahead and bring our hands down to our sides, shifting the weight at our feet. We'll reset our mount just slightly. Inhale, start to bring energy from the feet up the body through to the crown of the head, lengthening through your mountain as we return. Exhaling, feeling that energy return. Feel the legs root down, inner arches, big toe, firmly supporting the weight. Inhaling next, we just bring the weight towards the toes. Start to tip the weight until you can feel that edge. Hopefully at the end of that breath, use the next breath to slowly move that weight through the ball of the foot, arch, the heel, that tipping point. And again, one more breath cycle. See if you can establish that heel to toe muscle memory. We will meet at the top of the arches, somewhere at center, settling into our mountain. Inhale. Feeling up, lifting energy through the crown of the head. Go ahead and exhale. Just feel the weight roll towards the outer right edge of your feet. Inhale all the way back up to center. Exhale over to the other side. You can inhale over to the top, center, exhale over to each side for a 3-part breath. You can just breathe from side to side with a 2-part breath. And then we'll meet back at center. Inhaling nice and tall one more time. Let's go ahead and start making small circles at the outer edge. At the ankles, moving towards the outer edge of the feet. Finding that perimeter. And then bringing in the circles, tightening them in, returning back to center, somewhere at the top of the ankles. Inhale tall through the crown of the head. Small circles in the opposite direction, starting once more at the ankles. See if you can get those circles to radiate outwards towards the very edge of your feet. Notice how it feels this way around. And then tighten them in, return to center, like water going down a drain. Give yourself a nice bounce to the knees if you need. Sometimes we grip the mat, so lifting up through the heels to the toes. We'll go ahead and start rolling through the ankles, knees, and the hips a bit. Start shifting through the weight, shifting your weight from one foot to the other. We're going to start pivoting out the feet, the toes, making them just a little wider than the hips. And then you can start moving the top of the torso, sort of as you're moving in opposite direction, the lower part of the body. Your body will naturally start pivoting up the balls of the feet. But as you go from side to side, the torso in one direction as the ball of the foot that you're lifting. Your body should just naturally use the momentum of the arms to kind of tap at the sides. Let the tops of the shoulders relax. And then we'll peter out that energy and let yourself return to center. Back to mountain. Bring ourselves back in, feet under the hips. Let's go ahead and roll to the toes, to the balls of the feet if you can. Hold it a moment, and then just lower yourself back down. See if you can find center, just slightly, with a little more clarity. Alrighty. Moving on up the body. See if you can lengthen through the legs. If you had that slight bend to the knees, see if you can put an inward pressing of the inner arches to kind of even out the support at the feet. Lengthen through the legs as is available. That feels good. We'll move on up towards the shoulders. Palms facing forward. Inhale, shoulders go up. Exhale, roll them back. Let them melt down. Fully exhale, draw in the belly button. Inhaling, up goes the shoulders. Exhaling, rolling them back and down. Total of 4 of these breath cycles to help really facilitate any tightness in the shoulders. Just getting acquainted with how they feel this morning or this afternoon. Then we'll repeat a second round. This time, as the shoulders go up with the inhale, we're going to roll them forward with the exhale this time. Total set of 4 here as well. Go ahead and use the belly button as your marker to really engage the exhale. See if you've got that firmly pressed against the spine, the bottom of the very last exhale. Then we'll go ahead and release. Moving on up towards the neck. We're going to release hopefully through by just simply stretching in a sort of 4-direction area, starting with just lifting through the crown of the head. See if you can lengthen through the legs. And as you're energized upwards, go ahead and exhale. Let the lower lobe barely dip towards that right shoulder. Left shoulder and right shoulder in one line still. Use the next exhale to turn the gaze if you haven't already. And we're here for about 4 breath cycles as well. Notice if you had a change in the support at the legs, the feet, at the hips, at the shoulders, even distribution of weight with just a slight tilt, slight twist of the neck, relaxing, hopefully finding release even in the eyes as they rest on the rightmost side of your vision by that last exhale. Go ahead and bring the eyes, the gaze, the head completely back up. And then exhale, left ear towards the left shoulder. Inhale, chest lifts. Exhale, turn the gaze if you haven't already. Palms facing forward to help rotate shoulders away from the ears. And as you experience your breath cycles here, a total of 4, see if you can use that deep ocean breath in the rightmost vision resting spot by that last exhale. Then we can go ahead and bring the eyes, the gaze, the crown of the head lifts completely at the top of the inhale, and the eyes just float on down towards the top of the mat. Go ahead and give yourselves a few breaths here as well. With each inhale, feel that upward lifting even at the crown of the head, even though it's a slight tilt towards the ceiling. You're still getting that nice long length with the inhales. And with the exhales, finding the shoulders rolling back and down, rooting all the way in through those inner leg muscles down to the inner arches. One last exhale, and inhale the gaze back to center, past the midline, towards the ceiling. When you can see it, go ahead and stop craning the neck. Give some space to the chin, Lots of length through the front of the throat. Still have that space to the back of the head without craning the back of the neck. Notice if your feet started to roll outward. See if you can get all four corners of the soles of the feet to support the body. In a small opening at the mouth, a small O to a large O, to help release any tension in the throat, the jaw, and soften the brow. We'll go ahead and inhale, bring the gaze back to center. And give yourself a nice little gentle bounce at the knees. Shake out any residual tension in the body you may have still held on to, and we'll start with our folds, bringing the energy to the fingers, reaching downward while in mountain, feeling that upward energy through the crown of the head while reaching downward with the arms and with the hands. Inhale, arms extend upwards. At the top, reach up with the torso. Engage the core, bend the knees slightly, and hinge at the hips. Start to fold forward, really energized at the back, and at the halfway mark, you can always walk the hands down, or just let the back float on down. Our first fold is pretty lengthy, about 5 breath cycles, and you may find yourself just really in this half lift position, or maybe with the chest a little closer to the thighs. A deep bend to the knees if you're feeling tightness to the back of the legs. And this will still hopefully maintain your hips over your heels, that center of gravity. So all you can think about, hopefully in the last breath or two, is that release from the tailbone, down the spine, the neck. See if you're holding on to the head. The arms can be just relaxed, dangling. Maybe they're supported forearms at the thighs. Maybe your hands are somewhere at the shins. Wherever your fold is, see if you can deeply relax that last breath. And then we're going to roll out with a slow inhale. Engage the core. Start to press into the feet. Firm up the legs. Feel that center of gravity over the hips and press through the inner arches, through the balls of the feet. Hands can be on the thighs, but really try to use your bottom, your legs to start to unfurl, bringing your head to be the last to stack on the neck, the spine. Inhaling and exhaling, giving a moment for the blood to rush back to the head. Let's go ahead and fold one more time. Inhale, bringing the fingers downwards. We're reaching up at the top, lift up with the torso. Exhale, bend the knees if you need, and hinge at the hips. You can always bring your hands to the hip line too to remind yourself. Float on down, somewhere halfway down, or just continue to float. And here we're about 3 breath cycles only. So give yourself once more a little bit of time. Maybe you can play with the center of gravity. You can roll that feeling of center at the feet as we did before while we were standing. You can shift the hips from side to side. And then with the next inhale, we'll go ahead and slowly roll up once more, or you can come up with a straight back. But either way, inhaling, engaging the core. Let's come on up. Hands can be in prayer, above the head, reaching upwards, exhaling hands down, heart center, and down to the side. Let's go ahead and bring hands back up. At the chest, pressing into the palms. Let's move into our walking meditation. Standing weight to the left leg. Right foot up. Exhale, the foot down. Inhale, left foot up. Exhale, that foot down. A slow walking meditation. 1 full breath cycle per step. And as you make your way to the top of the mat, we'll meet in mountain, looking down at the fingertips, pressing into the palms. Inhale, watch them rise. At the top, separate the palms, engage the core, and bend the knees if you need, hinging at the hips. Come on down for a 3rd fold. Fully exhaled at your fold. Inhale, press into wherever your hands have contact. Maybe it's the shins, maybe it's the floor, maybe it's forearms on the thighs. But lengthen through the tailbone. Feel that center still at the hips, stand to the heels. Energize the core. See if you can lengthen through the back. and then exhale. Simply let the chest relax. Maybe the elbows just bend and you come into your fold. You can have those blocks nearby if you want to transition to your high plank, where you're going to step back, hands at either side of our feet, and walking one foot and then the other foot back, feet at the back of the mat. Inhale, let's bring our shoulders over the wrists for a high plank, and then modify, bring the knees down, untuck those toes, bring the shins, the tops of the ankles to support. Belly button is sticking to the spine, nice engaged core. In here, we're just looking at supporting the upper body with nice protracted, extended arms, protracted shoulder blades, nice and supported. And the tops of the ankles as well as the shins can always feel a little of that support of the bottom weight, so it's not all focused on the palms. Let's go ahead and inhale, tuck the toes, lift up the hips. Exhale, push the hips, extend through those arms. Bring your hips and your feet to the back of the mat for down dog. Now here we're about 5 breaths here. Give yourself a nice roll up to the feet, to the toes, and see where those heels land with the exhale. They may or may not touch the mat, and that's okay. If your hands are here near the blocks, you can always have those blocks down on a low setting if that helps. Be careful of your upper back if you need. But as we're in our down dog, we're transitioning from this maybe more U-like shape to an upside down V shape. And as we're bringing our heels down, hopefully the ears are somewhere in between the shoulders. Let's go ahead with the next inhale. Roll the eyes towards the hands. Bend the knees deeply. Inhaling deeply. Engage the core. And exhale. Walk the hands to the back of the mat. Bending the knees deeply. Coming back to the fold. Fully exhaled here. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. And inhale once more, bringing that center. Hips over the heels. Come on up. Slow inhale. Or straight back. All the way up go the hands. Exhaling, hands down, heart center. Hands finally down at the side. We're going one more time, second round. Inhaling, hands up. Pressing into the palms, engaging the core. Lift one leg, one foot. Press the ball of the foot, the toes. Down. Inhaling, left foot up. Ball of the foot, toes. And the right foot up. And as we're walking up towards the top of the mat, we'll meet in mountain once more. Looking down at the fingertips, pressing in the palms. Inhale, lift the hands, separate the hands at the top, engage the core, and let's fold at the hips. Fully exhaled at the bottom of our fold. Inhale, half lift. Lengthen through the back best that you can. Exhale, fold once more, bend the knees. Come on down, hands can be the blocks. You can go from the chair to the blocks, down to the mat. But we're stepping our foot back, our other foot coming up to a high plank this time, nice and long. Inhale, shoulders over the wrists. Just stay here for about 3 breath cycles. You can hopefully feel the shoulders stacking nicely over the wrists. The heels somewhat over the balls, the ball of the foot. And engage the belly button. Inhale, lift up the hips. Exhale, press into the arms so you can just come on back to the down dog at the back of the mat. Here, give yourself about 3 breath cycles. Inhaling deeply. You can lift up the hips, roll to the balls of the feet. Exhale, slowly lower the heels downward. You can position the feet in different areas. If you're really nice and open in the hips, it might feel nice to have the heels just slightly pivoted out, toes slightly pinched and toed in. Inhaling once more, let's go ahead and roll the eyes to the hands. Go ahead and bring heels back into heel-toe alignment, bend the knees, and we're going to walk the hands back to the mat, to the fold. One more time, exhaling fully here. Bend the knees if you need. Inhale, half lift and lengthen through your half lift. Exhale, fold once more. Inhale, engage the core. Press into the feet. Firm up the thighs. Strong core, hands up. Exhale, engage the core and feel that nice rooting down. Hands down, heart center. Finally, down to the side. And let the breath catch up to the heart. It's a great time for a little bit of water. That was a little bit of a slower version of our sun salutation. Whoops, my drink is off of the camera here. We're next coming into a forward fold, pretty lengthy. Our rag doll that you're used to at the beginning of our sun salutation. We're going to really explore that. So one thing is, if you have really tight hips, tight hamstrings, your hip flexors, your hip extensors, all these work together. So we're going to sit and just see if we can allow gravity to help us kind of align our hips and just feel that openness. It'll feel a little long, so if you feel at any time like you need to come out, come on out, and you can always just rest with the blocks or on the chair or in some neutral pose that we had done before. So coming into this position, if you have your chair in front of you, you can use that as a prop. If you have your blocks in front of you, I suggest you also have that. Maybe instead, thinking of that chair there, you can have the blocks somewhat at this top of the mat area. You can also just start this really deep fold that we'll be using with the blocks in your hand. Wherever you are, if you have a good practice of forward folding, you don't need the blocks, then you just do you and have a good time. So standing here, feet hips distance apart. Really see if you can feel all four corners of the feet. What does that mean? Imagine the ball of the foot at the big toe. Also the little ball of the foot at the pinky toe. Imagine that as being two corners. Come on down the arch, down to the heel, and you might have like a little rolling to the left, a little rolling to the right of the heel. Those are your four corners. We want to feel as if you can feel all of that on there. We don't want to put the center of our heel down on the floor. We want to feel as if we've got a nice feeling of the arch on the inner arch as well as that outer edge of the feet having contact with the mat. If you can feel that, you can lift the toes, let them just roll back down. See if you can still feel that hips to heel center of gravity. Alrighty, so if you have the blocks in your hand, if you have them in front, if you have the chair in front, either way we're bringing our arms up. We're really reaching upwards, really feeling if we can lift even through the sternum, through this chest. See if you can lift up through there, lifting up. Your arms might be off at a tangent, they might be vertical with you, just trying to lift up. And as you do so, you may feel the inner turning of those thighs. You may feel the inner arches making a little more contact with the soles, with the mat. Reaching up one more time. Exhale, bring the gaze to center, start to hinge at the hips, and you've got that core engaged, hopefully like second nature. We're bending at the knees. Somewhere halfway down, our hands might find that chair, might find the blocks. Our blocks already in hand might just land. And here's our first version of the fold. What we're looking for is not to lose this hips over heels center. See if you can still feel a good support through all four corners of the feet. You can lift up the toes, still feel that center, and not have anything change. If you're here, then I suggest once you've identified your nice support, see if you can play with that. Maybe your legs feel a little more comfortable with a muscle that's not activated, that's not needed to feel that support. Once you're there, then you can think about the tailbone, through the back, through the neck, through the crown of the head, as we do briefly in our sun salutations. You can think about how just
Hopefully relaxing through the head, through the neck, any grasp, any holding onto the neck. And keep that bend to the knees if you're starting to feel a little tighter in the legs. You can always keep a little more weight into the palms, but try not to dump all your weight into the palms if they're resting on the blocks, if they're resting on the chair. But you're hopefully feeling a little relaxing, more and more of this upper torso body. Perhaps it's getting closer to the chest. And then if you can, notice if you're just, where is your vision? Are you able to softly gaze, get more of the crown of the head to relax? And you can always, as you're deeply folding more and more, you can always imagine that little tailbone just sticking out just slightly in the inner arches, the inner thighs, those inner leg muscles helping to hopefully support the body. See if you can bobble the head gently from left to right, forward to back. If you don't have any kind of props, maybe you could just use your body. Let the forearms be supported on the thighs. And at this point, give yourself 3 more breath cycles. See if you can hear the ocean at the back of the throat. After that 3rd breath cycle, let's bring our hands to blocks if they're in front of us, to the chair if they're in front of us. We're going to start to bring the weight towards the toes. We're going to start to bring the knees downward and support the upper body by the hands on the chair or on the blocks. Flatten out the blocks to the lowest setting if you've got your hips down lower. And as you're on the toes, you can start to rock using either the chair or the blocks to help control the amount of weight that's on the balls of the feet. And then you can bring one of those blocks, if you have the blocks down there, under the heels, and you can start to lower the hips and the heels downward. See if you can bring contact of the hips to the heels. See if you can have that full contact and lift up through the torso, or just come into a squat if you're able to do your squat. Keeping the hands balancing, and you can always shift up and change if you need. We're here for 2 more breath cycles. Just lengthening. We may be lengthening our arches, we may be lengthening our Achilles heels, our calves, our quads. Inhale when you're ready to come up, and gently start to bring the knees downward. And if it's just not something you want to do, you can always bring the blocks underneath the shins. If you have that chair, you can bring the hands there. Help to support the body with the blocks under the shins. Or if you're able to, just come into a deeper toe tuck. Lift up the hips if you can. Walk with the blocks if you need, and untuck those toes. If you've got your shins on the blocks, hopefully you've got enough space to just untuck those toes as your shins are supporting you. And hopefully I'll just give you a brief view of that. So either way, we've hopefully untucked the toes and we're on our shins. We might be in front holding on to blocks. We might be in front with our hands holding onto the chairs. We just might be upright. But we're working on coming up to camel, and we might be assisting our upright camel with a chair, with blocks. But what we're trying to do is lengthen through the upper body and bring our stacking once more of the knees under the hips, shoulders over the hips, and it'll look as if we're tucking under our tailbone. This is a really pronounced view of that.
And my soundtrack is gone. So anyhow, giving ourselves that one last inhale upwards. See if you can feel the sternum lifting, pressing into the shins, the tops of the ankles. And then exhale. Hold the hands out to the chair if you need, or just slowly hinge at the hips and start to lower the hips back down. If you have blocks down at the side, you can tuck the toes if you need to. But we're coming on down to our hero. If you can keep your feet untucked, come on down, remove the blocks if you can, or just bring the blocks a little closer. We want our hips over our heels. And for some of us, having that space met by a block or under the knees with a blanket, sometimes that'll help us as we're transitioning to our hero. In either way, just coming to sit upright. If our hands are out in front and we're still transitioning, that's fine too. But we're just eventually sitting upright. And you can massage the back of the arches. If you can reach around, hold the flat of your knuckles down the arches and just roll a little bit. You'll give yourself a nice massage. If you can find the balls of the feet, rolling down to the balls of the feet, climbing with the knuckles up towards the heels. And then we can bring our hands up and forward. When you're ready to come out, having the blocks to help you up. You can tuck your toes if you need. And we're just going to find our way to a staff position. You can give yourself a nice squat stretch here. If you are here and we're coming onto our hips to find our version of staff, and eventually just rolling over onto one side of the hip to release the feet. I could have done that on the other side so you could see that a little better. But however you make your way onto your bottom, we're coming up to our staff position, which is essentially a 90-degree angle of our torso over our legs. So if that's really hard to do, and we're out here and our knees are up, we may need to transition as well with a block. So you can have that block to sit on. And as you're a little bit higher, and if you need 2 blocks, have the 2 blocks on the flattest setting. But as you're a little higher here, keep a gentle bend to the knee so you don't hyperextend the knee. You could just be on rolled up blanket. But however you find yourself in our staff position here, start to roll from side to side on your sits bones. See if you can find what feels like center, something over your perineum. You have hopefully this idea of your pelvic bowl. By just rocking from side to side and forward to back, you'll have hopefully that center idea right there. You might need to move some of your thigh flesh, gluteal flesh, and then notice where your knees and your toes are pointed. If we're very turned out, and it was very funny because the other day one leg was turned out and the other one wasn't, you can notice that internal rotation if it's needed by simply bringing the knees and the toes to be in the same direction as the ceiling. So we're moving towards that. And then just try to relax. See if you've got that tension here at the hip flexors. We're trying to find that tension here so we can sit upright in that nice 90-degree angle, and then just see if we can feel the sits bones kind of rooting down, feeling nice and supported. Once we're there, we're going to gently bend the left knee upwards as best that we can, and then as we start to go upwards, we're going to externally rotate outward. So we're going to sit in half a staff, half butterfly, just drawing that sole of the foot up the leg. And it just depends on where you are with your hips. Maybe your foot needs to be more at the thigh area. Maybe your foot, sole of the foot can be higher up the thigh towards the perineum. But the knee, we want to make sure we're not hurting that. So keep that nice and supported if you need, or allow gravity to work its way. But wherever you are, find your seated half butterfly, sitting upright. And once that feels good, knee and toes up on the extended leg. And this left knee eventually just opening up
a little more and more, and then you can draw your left sole of the foot closer to the seat, and just allowing the body to respond to that. Give yourself about 3 breath cycles from here. See if you can hear the ocean. Oftentimes, using the inhale to think of the energy moving through the body, finding the stiffness, the tension. There's oftentimes scar tissue, fascial brittleness, things that kind of make you feel stiffer. And just simply moving, bringing synovial fluid, creating openings in these tight areas. It'll hopefully give you just a little brief respite, a little relief from that tightness. You'll feel a little more fluid. Alrighty. Now to come out, we're going to inhale. Start to bring weight to the opposite hip if you need to. We're going to draw up the knee, internally rotating that left hip as we're extending through the left leg, and hopefully that'll avoid any impingement. Go ahead and bring both hips down to the mat and gently bounce that left leg. You can internally rotate, externally rotate, slowly. See how that feels now. If it was tighter, maybe you'll find a little more room. You're essentially just waving the left foot as you roll on the back of the heel. Alrighty. And then we'll move over to the other side, coming up into our upright seated staff once more. And if you changed the support in any fashion during the transition, go ahead and reset it. And as we're here, inhaling tall, exhaling, let's go ahead and start to bend this right knee. And you can bend on your own or you can assist, see where you are. But you'll need to probably come back on your hips just a little bit more as you're finding where you can land your other butterfly wing. So see how that feels. What we're hoping for is maintaining that upright seated position. So if it's too far for you to come into a butterfly, you might have more of a diamond shape to your right leg, or you might be in that full upright seated position. But once you find that edge, go ahead and breathe. And we're looking for, once more, about 3 to 5 breath cycles, full, deep, ocean-like sounds at the back of the throat. You might find on the exhale something opens. On the inhale, just finding a little more length. And after that last breath cycle, we'll go ahead and extend through the right leg as we're internally rotating that right hip in. Give your right leg a nice little bounce. And you can give yourself that rotational move again. You can point through that big toe. See how that internal, external rotation feels. Ankle rolls at this point, once you've established that right leg is okay. Ankle rolls in one direction, out the other. You're just basically making circles, and go ahead and turn them, have one lead. Just something for the joints to have a little more movement. And as we move in through, we've got a little more time, just hopefully a couple more poses here. And we are looking at reclining butterfly. Here is once more. We're going to start from butterfly though. So now bringing both of the feet together. While we're still upright, seated, you might find that you can bring the soles together. You might find that you could just bring the inner arches together. But we're going to be reclining in our butterfly soon with the knees up. And as we're moving our back down, we're just going to have the flat of our block somewhere at about, say the mid back. And usually what you can do is just bring it on back. The length of your arm is usually pretty good judgment, but we'll be moving it here, and once we're down, you can always adjust. We'll have one more block faced at kind of like a T. So one's sort of like here, vertical for the back, and then one's kind of at that T for the back of the head. And somewhere back there. And as you walk one hand down and then the other, you might find your elbow is able to come down and then the other. And then just simply rest the lower back. And hopefully your head lands on that other part there. And you're at the flattest setting here. So here, hopefully you can maybe find a little bit more of the arches meeting. And hopefully you have the sacrum feeling nice and flat, but that little space at the lower back, hopefully that feels good. If you need to have a rolled up blanket there, go ahead and put one there, but that little bit of space there with the flat of your sacrum supporting you should help. And then you can always move now this block that's in between the shoulders. Depending on the setting of the block, you can have it maybe a little higher, get an opening at the front of the chest, and you can play with that. Begin with that middle block if you need, or just, if you're in a good spot, leave that there. Sometimes being in the lower setting is just fine. And as you quiet down, we're going to think about bringing the arms out to the side if they're not already. You can leave them on the belly if that feels good, palms down. The heat of the palms can actually help stimulate, help engage the rest and relax nervous system side. You can extend through the arms and just have yourself sort of engage the parasympathetic side of your body that way as well. Just having the heart above the wrists slightly just helps to relax. And as we're getting to this point now, give yourself 5 breath cycles to relax and enjoy reclining butterfly. Maybe the knees are just dangling in the air and the shoulders are slowly releasing, allowing the support of the block to help open up the chest. And then just let the sound of the ocean fill the ears in the last few breaths. After that last exhale, go ahead and start to bring the hands towards the thighs. If you can bring the knees up on your own, go ahead, but first you can also help the knees up with your hands. We're bringing the soles of the feet back onto the mat. Bring the knees back into that base bridge position. And then use your hands to help anchor along the mat so you can just roll the torso off of the block if they're on the block. Go ahead and remove them, move the one at your head, and just roll back onto the back. We're moving into Shavasana in our last few minutes of the class. So as we transition downwards, you can extend through one leg. That feels good. And you don't need to bend or bobble or tap the leg out. You can extend through the other leg. And give yourself any last minute moves, the overhead extended stretching of the arms. I'll be sitting up to mind the time. And in your final pose of Shavasana, legs are either together or apart. Just depends on how you feel and the tightness of your hips. And the arms, if you can have the palms facing up, arms just relaxed at your side. They can be kind of a little further away. And let the belly be soft. And if you have the tongue stuck to the roof of the mouth, release it, let it be cradled in the lower jaw. And in the next 5 minutes, enjoy the sounds of the ocean. And you'll hear the bells when it's time to awaken.
bringing the mind back to the body. Take note of sounds outside the room, sounds within the room, and finally back to the breath. Notice how the air enters the nose and how the air exits the nose. And coming back to the body vessel, you can wiggle your hands, you can rub parts of your body, you can roll from side to side. Do something to bring you back into the present moment and reconnect. We'll be meeting in an upright seated position. Find yourself sitting comfortably on your sits bones. You can have your legs out in front of you. I'm sitting in hero right now, but we're ending class in our breath of fire breathing exercise today. And usually we have about only 10 breath cycles. We're going to increase that today to about 20. And we're just going to move slowly and do it methodically and with a little rhythm. And as we go through some of the classes, we'll start to increase that frequency and the speed. There's different ways to approach the breath of fire, but as we transition to the cooler months, knowing this breath practice exercise is really nice for just getting the internal furnace working, getting yourself energized. And it's great for strengthening your core, better than any crunches I've ever done. Anyhow, let's go ahead and sit comfortably. If you're in a hero pose, you want to feel your sits bones somewhere in between the heels or on top. If you're sitting in a sits bones directly on the floor, have that even distribution. See if you can feel the pelvic floor resting nice and firm, almost as if there's a triangle going on with the two sits bones and the top of your perineum. So just sitting nice and even, hopefully feeling that spine just sinking into the center of your pelvic bowl, gentle tuck of the chin. See if you can squeeze those bladder muscles and then release that gently. We're going to slowly inhale. And as you inhale and find yourself at the top of the inhale, hold it, draw up that pelvic bowl, engage the core, relax the throat, gentle tuck of the throat should give you just a gentle chin lock, and holding on to those bladder control muscles should give you a root lock as well. What we're going to be doing is holding these 2 points as we breathe through here, holding our very last breath. But now we're going to release. Let the inner thighs hopefully just lower down and relaxed. If you're holding on to these muscles, you'll find the inner muscles, the core really engaged during this exercise. So sitting up nice and tall, once more, feeling the air through the nose. We're just going to hold it for a moment. And then through pursed lips, shoot out the belly through those pursed lips. We'll do a total of 10 just to start with. Starting now. This last one, hold it, a slow exhale. Draw up the belly, draw the bladder muscles in, chin lock, and hold your breath for about 3 breath cycles. And then release. Release the pelvic floor, release the belly, let it be relaxed. Maybe your shoulders just melt. Breathe a little deeply through the nose. And then let the breath return to its natural state. And then we're going to end with a 20 breath of fire. And that last one will also be that slow hold. So starting now, inhaling deeply. Shoot out the belly. Draw up the bladder muscles, chin lock, and hold that breath for about 3 breath cycles. And then release. Bringing hands to heart center. Thank you so much for joining me here at the ACC Community Room for Gentle Yoga. I hope you have a wonderful day. Namaste.